Our garden is about 40 feet wide and close to 100 feet long. A favorite in our yard is the natural crocuses that we have growing. We use supplementary irrigation as we are in a very dry environment. The header line comes from the house. It's on a timer, and the header line here has lateral lines that run to the back of the garden. The hoses have emitters, and these emitters on this particular line happen to be about 1 foot apart. Another feature of our garden is that we have spinach patch that we allow to self-seed, and it grows by itself, and we have it over in one corner of the yard. The row of corn that we have looks like one row, but really it is made up of 3 different planting dates. The first planting date will be covered with a plastic hot hat to give it extra heat units, and then we'll have another planting date without the hot hats, and then another planting date after that. And in that way, we're able to have corn early and continuously for about 3 weeks, and we're just able to keep up with it and, of course, share some with the neighbors. Grass clippings from our yard go into the lawn itself. We don't do any bagging off of the grass during the growing season unless it gets to be exceptionally long. And in the springtime, the dried grass, when we clip it short for the first time, we spread it out, dump it into the garden, and then it'll be spread out as prior to rotavating. The raspberry row that we have here is not only for fruit, but we use it as a windbreak to the garden as well. To the left of the raspberry bush is the north and the west, so we get a lot of wind that comes in that way, and the raspberry row acts as a shelter for the garden itself, and then in the area of the garden we get a good buildup of heat unit. Next video will be of the actual garden processing, planting and so on. Bye. And the spinach patch is coming along very nicely, and we'll be eating spinach in the not too distant future. Okay, today is May the 16th. The garden is planted. On the very left, we've transplanted spinach to make a row of spinach this year so that they aren't as stressed. The second row is potatoes, and under the red plastic hot hats is corn, and beans, interplanted with beans, and that is the first planting date. And so, what will you do for your second planting date?
I'll just plant them, but not. I'll wait a week or so, and then I will just plant them freeland or whatever you call it, without hot hats.
And then a third planting date?
Yes, I'll do kind of a quarter, and then, or the half of what is left, and then another half.
Okay. And will they also be interplanted with beans?
Yes, they will.
And that'll spread out both the timing of the corn and the beans.
And hopefully.
And in the row that we're in front of now?
There's carrots and red beets, and then peas at the very end.
At the very end, okay. And now?
And this row here is peas.
Okay.
It has more emitters, so that's where the peas goes.
And then
here we are having zucchini, tomatoes, cucumber, and parsley, coriander, celery. Celery is the first thing, and then there's going to be lettuce, and then the last 4 there is a butternut
squash
that Richard gave us, and a spaghetti one that Richard gave us, and then there's a cantaloupe, which is our second year we're trying cantaloupe. We had delicious cantaloupes last year.
Okay, and then we have about 10 or so hats here.
And that's tomatoes.
Okay.
Various kinds that started in the house. And then at the end is red onions. And then these last row here, that is kind of a hill, is garlic. Planted last year and then
last fall.
Last fall, yes.
Yes. And so we're looking forward to a very fruitful vegetable garden this year. Thank you. And these are individual cells and filled with water, and you can close or you can open it up. And this is a tomato plant growing happily on the inside. And if there's going to be cold, you just close it up. And these get nice and warm. Warms up the soil. And they are placed on top of an emitter like this. Fantastic. In the basement we have a mini growth facility. There is 2 levels for growing plants on, and at the top is an automated watering system. At this time there's really not much growing under the lights, as you know, this is where the tomatoes would have been and the other bedding vegetables. But you'll see that there are some orchids that after they've been blooming, they get a chance to go to rest over here. And there's one that's getting ready to make a set of blossoms. There's 5 orchids that came out from the little greenhouse in late February, early March, and they've been blooming. And so these had their rest and are blooming happily.